why Afraid of 7-6 was. Because 9, 7, 8.
How you get so big into food of this kind?
A common question shared among Star Wars fans is, if you were a character, which one would you want to be? Oftentimes my instinct is to answer Yoda. Yoda is my favorite character, as much as who my top 5 characters are vacillates and changes day by day, and the order changes day by day. The number one favorite absolute character never ever changes, never ever wavers, and that is Yoda. But then I think about it a little bit. Yes, he's an iconic space Muppet, he's a symbol of wisdom, and he's known for his deep philosophy, but also his tendency, like all teachers, to be vague and unhelpful. With Luke, he was frustrating and frustrated. He was irritable of having Obi-Wan drop Luke off in his backyard like a lost puppy. He thought Vader was gone forever, dominated by his destiny, and Yoda was wrong. Flashback to the last days of the Republic, and Yoda seems cold. He's cranky, he didn't want to train Anakin, he has fear leads to anger platitudes. In Revenge, he tells Anakin to just not be sad if somebody dies, as if it's that easy. Yoda is a beloved character who is all at once calm and serene and ornery and wise and blinded and mischievous and the embodiment of dogma and funny and stoic. I think a lot of us get our vision of Yoda clouded by whichever version of Yoda we have in our heads, and when he doesn't reflect that version, it feels like he's not being written well. The Jedi as a whole in the prequel trilogy have the critique of being wooden and aloof, like they don't really know what's going on in the galaxy, and a lot of times this gets written off as bad writing. And while not all, a lot of that is from Yoda. He's not the semi-crazed hermit that we will one day know. And funny how that is, eh? That he is a Jedi that we've all known our whole lives, and all of a sudden being represented in a way that just seems a little bit different. I think that perhaps one of the reasons why Yoda seems so unrelatable, and why he seems to have all these different versions of himself that don't always add up, is because of one of the most important features of his character that's also one of the easiest to forget about. He's really old. He's 900 years old. Can you imagine being 900 years old? I can't even imagine being 90. I mean, think about yourself right now, who you are today, and think of a year ago. Are you the same version of yourself now that you were then? Are you the same version of yourself that you were 5 years ago? 10? 20? Yoda is 900 years old. There's been a lot of versions of Yoda. There's been a lot of phases of Yoda's life. There's been a lot of different headspaces Yoda has been in. So is Yoda inconsistent, or does he just have a depth of personality that only that much life can bring? But more than that, imagine what death means to someone like Yoda. As sad as we are when someone dies tragically before their time, Yoda would have trained students. He would have known Jedi since they were infants, watched them grow up, and watched them die entirely in their time. Not in a tragic way, but in a way that's completely natural. Yes, he still would have seen loved ones pass through tragedy, through accidents, through battle, but just the idea that someone you could have known their whole life could pass on without you, and know that you still have so much life to live after, it puts a different perspective on things. So in Revenge of the Sith, when Anakin has come to Yoda to find some sort of consolation for everything he's going through, Yoda is not just telling him to get over it. He's not telling Anakin to just walk it off. He's telling Anakin what only someone with a millennia's worth of perspective can know, that death comes, and with it, new life. You can hold on to what's not yours, or you can enjoy what you have while it's here. Yoda seems almost joyful in explaining this, because he can see the beauty of the big picture, where young Anakin is focused on what he thinks he can't live without in that moment. So what of when Anakin came to the Jedi in The Phantom Menace? Yoda was his most vocal opposition to having him join the Jedi Order. Why was that exactly? Did Yoda sense that he would become Darth Vader and destroy the Jedi Order? Probably not to that extent, but I do believe he did sense a darkness within Anakin. But more than that, I think what Yoda saw was change, a break from tradition. It's important to remember that while there is a Jedi Council, Yoda was the Grand Jedi Master. He was the Jedi. He's the Space Pope. Allowing Anakin in wasn't just an exception, it was precedent for things down the road. What if this altered everything? Palpatine isn't wrong when he says all who gain power are afraid to lose it. Even Yoda. Anakin scared him. The idea of the Chosen One scared Yoda. Yoda sensed some kind of danger that he didn't know, and after all these centuries, the idea that Yoda could not know something or have not seen something before had to have been terrifying. But later, we see Yoda be kind to Anakin in Revenge of the Sith, and in Star Wars The Clone Wars, there's whole episodes where Yoda relies on Anakin and needs his ability to break the rules. Just what is this change? Well, for lack of a better phrase, Yoda is only human. In Attack of the Clones, Obi-Wan is speaking to Yoda and Windu about Anakin, calling him arrogant, and Yoda reminds him that this is a flaw more and more common among Jedi, even the older, more experienced ones. Here, he's calling out Obi, saying that the apple isn't falling far from the tree. But I think Yoda is also speaking to Mace, and is also speaking about himself. Yoda has seen that Anakin can grow as a Jedi. Yoda has seen that the times in the galaxy are changing, and maybe he's beginning to see a little bit about how the Jedi were relying too much on dogma. Then the war happens, and as often with war, everything changes. If you're not familiar with the Jedi Code, it's as follows. There is no emotion, there is peace. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. There is no passion, there is serenity. There is no chaos, there is harmony. There is no death, there is the Force. Now, some variations on that exist within canon, but that is the core idea that has existed long since Legends. Now, that Jedi Code doesn't leave a lot of wiggle room for war. The Jedi are keepers of the peace, not soldiers, but now they're generals. They're monks who suddenly take over the military, and that does something to the soul. This is a war against everything that the Jedi were taught, and they have to lead it from the front lines. More than that, this is Yoda's war. It's Yoda's Jedi Order, and as such, Yoda is responsible for the defense of the Republic, and everything has just gone to pot. For someone who had thought he had seen everything, someone who thought he could keep the people he cared about safe, to see them slaughtered on a battlefield fighting an army he didn't know existed, with the aid of another army he didn't know existed, all against his former Padawan, someone he taught himself, Yoda had lost everything. And not just what was his, but what was others. That is the Jedi Master telling Anakin to let go of everything he feared to lose. Not a pompous figure in a Jedi Council room who didn't understand, but someone who would have lost as much as anyone else could lose, who had failed as much as anyone else could have failed. Someone who absolutely should have known better, if there was anyone who could have. At the end of Revenge of the Sith, Yoda gets away from Palpatine and says, "Into exile I must go. Failed I have." 14-year-old me took that pretty literally. I thought he meant in that moment he had just failed to kill Palpatine, and because of it he had to go live in a swamp. It didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but sure. I kind of kept that as an interpretation for a long time. Just because I didn't see the need to change it. And then eventually I revisited Revenge of the Sith and I came to realize what that line really meant. Yoda had failed to protect the Republic. It was no more. The Jedi were no more. He was responsible for the death of the Jedi from elderly to infancy. He was responsible for the death of freedom. Or at least that's how he would see it. Yoda was alive. The old one. When there were so many in their youth who were gone. A relic of the thing he let wither. And so he went into exile. And then lo and behold, here comes the son of the one who did all of this, who was more concerned about helping Vader than the galaxy. A man who had so many of the same faults, and Yoda was still afraid. When Yoda speaks to Luke in The Last Jedi about failure, Luke is a man who saw the death of his Jedi Order at the hands of someone he taught, it's somebody he was harsh to, and somebody who he ultimately lost to the dark. And Yoda speaks to Luke as another who lost his Jedi Order at the hands of one he was responsible for, one he was harsh to, and one he had lost. This scene in The Last Jedi is a profound moment of shared guilt, of shared responsibility. Two beings in the galaxy who could only ever know how the other one truly felt. These are two Jedi who, in so many ways, had the same path, only Luke got a chance to do what Yoda could not. Luke got a chance to come out of his exile and restore hope to the galaxy. So while my gut still might want to jump to saying, man, I wish I was Yoda anytime I watch the Star Wars movies, I gotta say that I probably don't mean it. I certainly don't think I could handle it. You don't get to be Yoda by being short, green, and having giant ears. You get to be Yoda by enduring pain and loss and guilt, and by overcoming it. You get to be Yoda by being humbled from the highest position you could possibly hold. You get to be Yoda by letting go of your own fame and success, and maybe even your own redemption, for the sake of others. There's a wisdom about Yoda, but like anything else really valuable in this world, that wisdom comes with a price. So anyway, on that note, like, subscribe, follow us on Twitter at Port Haven Forums, visit port-haven.com for even more, and I'm gonna leave you on that little think piece. Until next time, keep it real and fly casual.
Cooking candy fun!